Hey everybody, welcome back to Cityscape Brewing. I'm Elf, Dennis Fields, and today we've made a list, we've checked it twice, and we found out what brewers want, whether they're naughty or nice. So we're going to be going through many of the categories and the must-have buys for 2022. Grab yourself a beer, hit that like and subscribe button, and stay tuned. First, we all know what every brewer wants, and that's Cityscape Brewing merch. Check out the merch store underneath this video or in our homepage store. You can get a glass like this one, hats, shirts, stickers for your beer fridge. You know you need one of those, and anything else you want to stick underneath the tree or in the stocking. But for real, we're going to give you a list of all the brewing must-have things that you need to send to all of your friends and family members to be able to get all of the brewing equipment and things that you need to make your 2023 a brewing success. We're going to link everything I'm talking about in the video description below. All of the links to every single thing that we're talking about will be down there, so no need to write everything down. Check out the video description after this, and that's where everything's going to be. We're going to start out big, and by big I mean starter kits. Maybe you're new to homebrewing altogether. Maybe you need everything, right? Well, the best way to do that is to go with a starter kit that has everything you need to get started. So most of those things will be fermenter buckets, will be something to boil in like a kettle, will be a kit that comes along with a lot of these starter kits, and also things like a capper for bottles. It'll be siphons for transferring your beer from one fermenter or vessel to another, things like that. All of that stuff comes in essential starter kits. And so I have 3 that I've listed in the video description. One, starting with the essential stuff. If you're just getting started and you're on a budget, this is the one. It's about $100, maybe a little less, and all of these come with a 5-gallon brew kit. And those brew kits can generally range from anywhere from $25 to $50 anyway. So you're really getting the whole kit plus a $5 or a 5-gallon brew kit with it is a really great deal. There are 2 other kits after the essential kit. They all come with a little bit more stuff in them. So it really depends on how much that you want to get started with right away. But the deluxe starter kit has a little bit more than the essential. And then of course the premium kit comes with everything, even like a glass 6.5-gallon glass fermenter like I use. That's a big mouth bubbler, a kettle, and a Wort Chiller. And we'll talk about all of that stuff separately. But if you're looking to get started and you want to get a kit for yourself, those are the way to go right away. Next, we're going to talk about everything else individually, right? So the starter kits are for those people who are really getting started, but maybe you've got a starter kit, or maybe you've conglomerated a bunch of things and kind of made your own kit like I did. We're going to really talk about the must-have things right away on the list. So the things that you need to do to get all grain brewing. So a lot of people start out on a stovetop and they need the essentials to move to all grain brewing. One of those things is a 10-gallon kettle. And so you're going to be doing full boils when you start all grain brewing, and you need a bigger pot, something that's bigger than fitting on your stove inside. And you're going to need something to cook it on, right? Like a propane burner. So let's talk about the pot first. All right, we got a pot. I told you I was magical. This is a Gas 1 10-gallon or 40-quart brew pot. This I've been using for several years. It actually comes with the temperature gauge on the front, and it actually comes with a ball valve. And you'll actually need another nipple for a hose nipple on the front. I also have that included in the link below. That's going to help you transfer with a silicone hose to a different vessel afterwards. What I like a lot about this pot, it comes with the lid, which is really nice, but it also comes with the markings on the inside. It's stainless steel, so it's not going to get all gummed up and things, and it's much better than using an aluminum pot. But the one thing that this has is it has markings on the back to tell the volume that you have. So as I'm getting my strike water and my mash water, I can tell what the volume is as I'm filling it up from my hose and inline filter outside. I fill it up to that mark, I go ahead and I just start heating it up. No need to measure in a different way. They got the markings right on the kettle. That's a must-have for your brew pot. Next, we have the propane burner. And this is a Bayou Classic burner. This one, I obviously has seen better days, right? But the reason I want to show this one in particular, not a pretty picture of a brand new one, is because I've had this for a long time. It lasts a long time. And when you have something that's this quality that lasts a long time, you keep it, right? This thing is probably one of the cheapest propane burners that's gonna boil a 10-gallon or up pot quickly. that you can buy today. There are a lot of really expensive burners. This one is by far the cheapest and it works great. I've had this one for over 10 years. Believe it or not, I've never had another propane burner. This is it. And I would recommend everyone getting this one, and it is by far the cheapest version that you'll find. So next, we're gonna chill things out with an immersion chiller. What else? So this is not the one that I'm linking in the video description, but I don't have that one. Most of the items that I'm going to be linking below are the exact items that I use that you'll see right here on this table. This one was actually gifted to me and it works excellent. An immersion chiller is probably the best thing that you can use to get when you get started homebrewing, to chill your beer as quickly as possible so you can reduce the risk of contamination after your boil. This is really important. And any wort chiller will work. I even had a video that I will post below on how to make your own DIY wort chiller. If you'd rather go that route, you can do that for about half the cost of the immersion chiller that I'm gonna post in the link below, which is around $80 to $90. You can do it for about $40 with the equipment from that video. So you can check that one out as well. Next, you're really gonna need something to ferment in. So here we go. Whoa. And I didn't realize I was gonna bring the fermenter with the beer in it, but as you can tell, this thing's working like a champ. We're actually doing our celebration ale right now. This one's fermenting away in the glass carboy here. This is a 6.5 gallon big mouth bubbler from Northern Brewer. This comes with a harness on it already. It's glass, so you can see the activity going on. Look at the krausen going on in here. Looks really, really good. Got the airlock activity going on in here, and everything is A-OK. I cannot wait to try this beer. I will also have this one coming up soon in a video. One thing I like about the big mouth bubblers versus other fermenters is glass allows you to see what's going on inside of the fermenter. And although they're glass, they're not the small necked ones where they're hard to clean. This has a giant mouth, hence the name big mouth bubbler. You can get your whole hand in there, clean that thing out really, really good. Comes with this harness, easy to carry, easy to lift up. I put this thing in my fermentation chamber. I can see all the activity going on. I even have my tilt hydrometer floating in here somewhere. And I can see all the activity. When the krausen drops, the airlock activity happens. I take it out, we transfer it to a keg or a secondary, and we're good to go. They also make a version of this thing that has a spigot on it as well. Glass as well, but it has a spigot. So if you don't want to use an auto siphon, you can go ahead and just hook up your hose to the spigot on the bottom, and you can go that route as well. I'll have both of those posted in the link description below. For now, I need to get this guy back into my fermentation chamber so it can finish making some delicious beer. Perfect, right where it should be. Back in the fermentation chamber, doing its thing. Time for a beer break. This is a cranberry ginger sour, also in a Cityscape Brewing glass. Go check it out. But if you haven't watched a video on how to make a sour, especially this cranberry ginger sour, how to add cranberries to a secondary, I'll have that video as well. This is a great fall beer, get together beer. Cranberries are on sale in the fall right before Christmas because cranberries are around Thanksgiving, right? So go pick up some fresh cranberries, make yourself a cranberry ginger sour. You will not regret it. All right, I might have lost track of time, but you're not gonna lose track because of all this measuring equipment that you're gonna need in your list. All right, what do we got here? First, we have a digital scale, a must-have for weighing out ingredients like grains and hops. So this is a cheap version. You can get this one. It's worked amazing for me. You can get this exact same one in the link below. You're also going to need a digital thermometer. This one is very quick at reading the temperatures. It is also something that's easy to clean, easy to read, and it reads fast. That's the one thing I like about this. I use this specifically for my mash, and so while I'm taking my mash temperature, it reads very quickly and it is very accurate. And the strongest of all of the contenders here is the Herculometer. This is not no ordinary hydrometer, my friends. This is a shatterproof hydrometer. This is something that you need in your kit so you don't break it like the other glass ones. This one is a precision hydrometer, but it is made of polycarbonate. So it is shatterproof and therefore you will not break one. I've actually broken a couple of these things. This one is basically indestructible. You're not gonna accidentally drop it and break it. It's a must-have for any brewer and very reasonably priced. The next thing that every home brewer needs is a refractometer. So when you don't want to fill up a whole vial for a hydrometer reading test and you're before your primary fermentation and there's no alcohol present, you can use a refractometer. And you've probably seen me use this all the time in my brew day videos. This thing is a must-have. You put a couple drops on here, you close the lid here, you look through here, it's got your starting your gravity readings and your bricks on the other side. Perfect for any home brewer, very reasonably priced, and something that's easy as a stocking stuffer. So throw that thing in here. The next thing is probably the coolest thing that I have as far as a measuring piece of equipment on the table, and that is the tilt hydrometer. And if you don't have one of these things, you gotta get one. This is probably one of the more expensive items that I have on the table here. It's 135 bucks for one of these, but the tilt is the coolest thing. I'm actually doing a whole video on this in a few weeks. You can check that out. The tilt is a floating hydrometer that floats in your beer as you're fermenting it. So it floats in your primary fermenter. The one I had pulled out just a minute ago, it actually is floating in there right now, and it's giving me a specific reading, and I'll show you on the fly what that looks like. So I actually can open up my Tilt app. It's gonna Bluetooth wireless connect right to my phone app, and you can actually see that my gravity reading right now is 1.028, and it's 69 degrees Fahrenheit right on my phone right here. I'm actually gonna take a screenshot so you can see that I'm not lying to you, and I'm gonna put that on the screen right now. This is really cool. But in addition to that, I actually have a Raspberry Pi, which actually uploads every 15 minutes the readings from my tilt onto a Google Sheets, and that's even cooler because then I can see the whole scale of things as it's going all the way through the brew process. And so I'm actually going to do a whole video on that coming up. Stay tuned. We're not going to get that in depth in this video, but a tilt hydrometer is an awesome gift that you can ask for a friend or family member. I'll have that link down in the video description, and ask me any questions if you have them. The next thing is a pH meter. And not a lot of people think about pH, but pH is super important both in your mash and specifically when you're doing a sour, a kettle sour. So I use this a lot of times for when I'm doing a kettle sour. I've gotten really good at my pH for my mash, so I don't do it every single time that I mash, but this thing is a must-have if you're doing sours because you're testing that pH reading. You're adding a little bit of lactic acid in that kettle sour to drop the pH a little bit at the beginning, and then you're adding a Lactobacillus plantarum type of bacteria into your sour. I use a Good Belly probiotic drink for that, as if you've watched any of my videos, and then you test it after 18 to 24 hours again, and that should drop to about 3.5 pH. So it's really important to have one of these pH meters so you can see where you're at to see when that sour's getting done souring over the 24-hour period. And to calibrate that, you'll need some calibration solution. So I've also put that in with the link as well, so you can get each one of these things. So enough about the measuring equipment, let's get to fermentation. If you've ever seen any of my videos before, you know how important fermentation temperature control is. And so out of all of the things that I'm going to list today, if you don't have something to regulate your temperature for your fermenter, you should. And so I have a whole video on how to make a fermentation chamber, but one of the two most important things that you're going to have for that is a temperature controller. So I use an Inkbird temperature controller. This thing has an input to the desired temperature that you want to hold your beer at, and then it's got two plugs, one for the cooling and one for the heating element. And the heating element is just as important as the cooling element. You don't want your freezer to turn on and get too cold where it gets your beer below that optimal fermentation temperature, so you need a heating element inside of your fermentation chamber. In this case, I use a lizard lamp like this one. This one actually has a ceramic lamp that is just like a light bulb, right? So if I unscrew this thing, it looks just like a light bulb screw, but it's actually a ceramic plate that goes inside of this light housing here. And then each time that the fermentation temperature says it's getting a little cold, we need to turn this thing back to a little warmer, this thing kicks on, right? So this plugs into the other side of my Inkbird temperature controller. Also, those Inkbird temperature controllers come in both a regular and a Wi-Fi. So if you're not at home and you need to turn up or down the temperature, say you're doing a lager and you want to actually raise it for a diacetyl rest, you can do that through the Wi-Fi with the Wi-Fi version of the Inkbird. So check that one out too. That's in the same link, but there's two options when you're going to check out. This is great because it doesn't emit light. One thing that's not good for beer is light, right? So this thing is, most of the time people buy these for aquariums, for like lizards or something like that, but it won't have a light source, so it doesn't turn red or any type of other color, it just warms up. So it's gonna stay dark inside of my fermentation chamber. So all that's getting is the heat, it's gonna warm it up a few degrees, then it's gonna kick it back off, and it's gonna keep that beer at a consistent temperature while it's in fermentation. Another route you can go for a heat source is a wrap that goes all the way around the fermenter. There's a heat wrap or even a pad that you can buy that goes up underneath that. I'll have that as an option for one of the links in the video description as well, so you can go ahead and check that out. One of the things that you need when you have a fermentation chamber, because there's a lot of hot and cold and the walls are heating up and then cooling down and that kind of thing, and sometimes it can create moisture issues inside of your fermentation chamber. So what I use is a EverDry renewable mini dehumidifier. And what this thing does is it sits inside of there, and there's these little pellets inside. They're orange or kind of yellowish color, and when there's moisture in there, these little holes kind of suck up the moisture that's inside of your fermentation chamber, and then they kind of turn like this greenish black color. And then when they're full of moisture, you can actually go ahead and dry these things back out. There's a plug right here on the back, so this plugs right into a wall. You plug it in for like 8 hours or so, it heats up, it dispels all of that moisture inside of here, and then you can reuse it over and over and over. So this dehumidifier for your fermentation chamber is an absolute must-have. It's going to help you with that moisture issue so you don't get any mold or any nasties growing inside of your fermenter when you're trying to make good, delicious beer. Next, let's talk buying in bulk. And I even kind of forgot what's up next, so we're just going to find out. Whoa. Okay, so we have the dog food container, and you know we're not actually brewing with dog food. This I use for bulk grains. This is a Gamma dog food container. It's actually got an airtight lid. I use this for buying grains in bulk to save some money. And so in this case, I've got a bunch of Pilsner malt in here, and I just use this as needed, put the lid back on, and I got it on hand. And so that's always a really nice thing if you're gonna buy in bulk, saves a whole lot of money. But these dog food containers are kind of a must-have to keep the critters out of there. There's a lot of weevils and things that get inside of malt. And so this will help make sure that all of those critters can't get in here, ants, bugs, mice, that kind of thing. And you can store this thing airtight in a different room and have it on hand when you're ready to brew. Next. Whoa. Okay, well, next you're gonna need something to mill all of those grains. And so the next thing you're gonna need is a grain mill, right? This is the barley crusher. This is one I have. There's also other budget ones. I'm gonna also put those in the link descriptions below. This is a must-have. If you buy some grains in bulk and you wanna mill them yourself, which I highly recommend doing, it's part of the whole process, but it's also a cheaper way of doing everything. You'd hook this up to a regular drill. You'd put that on a low setting. You'd set the mills that are on the inside. This one is a 2-roller right here. Those are about the thickness of a credit card. So you can just use that. There's a little adjustments on the side. You set that thickness, and then now you're milling your own grains. That's gonna help you save money in the long run. A lot of homebrew supply stores, or even ones you buy online, they actually charge you more for the cracked malt than they do for the uncracked malt. So even if you're continuing to buy stuff online, or even going to your homebrew store, it may be cheaper if you have your own grain mill, even if you're not buying in bulk. So keep that in mind. All right, another beer break. Most elves like candy canes. This elf likes beer. What's next? Whoa. All right, let's get it started. Well, you see what I did here. So this is everything you need to make a yeast starter. So we have a flask, This is a 200 milliliter Aldermeyer flask. This is something you're going to need to make 1 or 2 liter starters. I recommend getting the larger one. Even with a 1 liter starter, you'll have some fermentation activity that comes up. I generally don't make 2 liter starters. I only make up to 1, but getting the larger one will make sure you have enough room in order to have that fermentation action going on, especially if you have something that's fairly active. So get the larger one. It's not much more expensive, and you'll be happy that you did. Next, you will need a stir bar. Sure, you can go you can make a starter and you can go ahead and just stir this by walking past it every once in a while. But a stir plate will speed up that process. This is essentially got a little magnet in there. It comes with a stir bar like this one here, and it fits in the bottom here. You'll slide this down inside the bottom of the flask, and it'll spin around and make that yeast starter. I'll also put the link to that video on how to make a yeast starter in the video description below, so you can check that out. But that essentially magnets like that through the flask, spins it around, and keeps your wort oxygenated as it is replicating the yeast cells in your yeast starter. And how do you make a yeast starter? Well, you need DME, or dry malt extract. So this is light DME. Also have a link to that, so you can buy everything you need to get started. But maybe you don't want to boil DME, mix it up, that kind of stuff. Well, you need a 4-pack or a 2-pack or a single can, anyway, of canned wort, like this one. This is fast pitch. I don't know that they make this stuff anymore. I have a whole bunch of it from a long time ago, but the real popular one that they have is Proper Starter, so I'll link that one down below. Essentially what this is, it's canned wort. You would add 1 can of this and 1 can of water to your wort, and you would mix that up. This also has yeast nutrient in it. This already is set to go, so you don't need to boil it, you don't need to cool it down. You just need to pitch it in here, pitch your yeast, put it on the stir plate, and you're good to go. So this is everything we need for a yeast starter. Check it out. All right, the last thing that Elf Dennis has, but definitely not least, is kegging and draft equipment that you can ask for that's easy to put on your Christmas list. The first and foremost is kegs. I got some sanitizer in here, so we're just sanitizing this guy up. But kegs, number 1, don't buy them new, okay? There's a lot of used, very, very good quality corny kegs on the market. This is ball locked. I've never bought a new one. New ones cost anywhere between 130 and 160 bucks. I would never pay that much. Normally, you can find kegs sometimes on Craigslist, sometimes online. The ones in the link description are about 60 bucks. Way better deal than getting one for brand new for 2 to 3 to 4 times that amount of money. Don't do that. They work just fine. You can replace the O-rings. You can put keg lube on them. They're fine. Just because they're dingy on the outside, they make great beer on the inside. And the very last but not least is beer faucets. One of the things that I have changed over the last year of brewing in my brewing experience is my faucets. And I've changed from a regular standard tap handle to the Intertap handles, and I can tell you right now, it's one of the best decisions that I've made as far as my draft equipment is concerned. They don't gum up nearly as much. They don't need to be cleaned nearly as much. They're forward sealing, meaning the beer stays in the front of the faucet rather than in the back, which means there's less air contact on the inside, which means there's less mold or mildew or insects crawling in there or anything like that. And yeah, I put little caps over the top of them, but they need to get cleaned out, once in a while. I'll tell you what, since I've switched to the Intertap, I haven't had that issue nearly as much as when I was just using a standard tap handle. And the cool thing about the Intertap, I bought stainless steel ones. They do come in chrome plated if you want to save a few dollars. I recommend the stainless steel. They do clean a little easier, but the Intertap has a removable spout. And so one of the things that I like is that it has a growler filler, which I also use for filling bottles. This little growler filler here has a little hose barb on the front, and then I add this amount of nylon vinyl tubing, and this just slides over the top. And then I keep this right on here. And then the next thing I want to do, if I want to grab a couple beers, bring them to some friend's house, grab a growler, that kind of thing, is I just take off the little nipple on the front of the Intertap faucet, and I screw on this thing, and then I stick it down inside of the bottle, fill it up, and I'm on my way. So the flexibility that this faucet has versus a standard faucet, also the fact that it is just way easier to clean and maintain, and they have these little cool springs that fit inside of them that self-close the handle. You probably heard me talk, if you've been a member of my channel for a while, I accidentally one time, taking out the trash, hit one of my tap handles and I dumped the best hazy IPA I had ever made to date all over my garage floor and running down my driveway. Before I realized it, I came outside later and all I heard was CO2 pushing out of the faucet. Man, you want to talk about like heartbroken? That was a hard day. And so I would highly recommend getting these Intertap faucets and getting those little springs that self-close, because if I would have just brushed that, these handles snap right back, close them, and you don't have to worry about it. Thanks for putting up with Elf Dennis for today. As I said, all of the things that we talked about today, including all of the items and the videos that we discussed, will be in the video description. Go ahead and copy and paste them to friends and family members. These are the things that you need and want to get to be a better brewer, and these are the essential items. Again, I didn't put everything you need for brewing in here. I put the things that they're easy for other people to go and get, to find. You can send them the exact link. You know you're not going to get something that you don't want, right? Hit that like and subscribe button. Copy this list to your friends and family. Happy homebrewing, and cheers. Thanks for watching my video. I really do appreciate it. Another couple ways that you can help support the channel is by hitting that like and subscribe button. You can also check out the merchandise in our store. I have other shirts. We got glassware, we got stickers, hats, sweatshirts, etc. Go check it out. Also, hit that video here. You know you want to.